Brazil has got its new president. The country brought in Lula da Silva back in power. The president-elect defeated the far-right government of Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro, who lost with 49.10% of the votes. Lula rose from poverty to Brazil's presidency before crashing into disgrace in a corruption scandal. He has made a spectacular comeback as the leader of Latin America's biggest economy at the age of 77. His supporters took to the streets to celebrate his victory with music and fireworks. Soon after his victory, Lula da Silva called for peace and unity, saying Brazil was no longer an international pariah and that the world needs a living Amazon.
Hoje, nós estamos dizendo ao mundo que o Brasil está de volta, que o Brasil é grande demais para ser relegado a esse triste papel de pária no mundo.
In his victory speech, Lula reached out to supporters and rivals alike. He emphasized on the need for democracy and opportunity. He also touched on gender and racial equality and the urgent need to deal with the hunger crisis that affects 33.1 million Brazilians.
Estou aqui para governar esse país numa situação muito difícil, mas eu tenho fé em Deus que com a ajuda do povo nós vamos encontrar uma saída para que esse país volte a viver democraticamente, harmonicamente e a gente possa inclusive restabelecer a paz entre as famílias, entre os divergentes, para que a gente possa construir o mundo que nós precisamos e o Brasil.
Now, the Brazilian elections have been closely watched as the future of the Amazon rainforest and its impact on global climate emergency was at stake. During his time in office from 2003 to 2011, Lula radically reduced the deforestation of the Amazon, but incumbent President Bolsonaro weakened environmental protections and indigenous land rights after taking office in 2019. The US President Joe Biden congratulated Lula da Silva for his victory in free, fair and credible elections and said he looks forward to continued cooperation between the two. French President Emmanuel Macron too congratulated the new president. Now, for more on this, we're being joined by journalist Gil Mendes from Brazil's government. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Lula da Silva has staged a comeback. What does this mean for Brazil going forward?
Good night to everybody. Good night and good morning to everyone from India and here in Brazil. We are still 10:30 p.m. at night. The victory of Lula was specified. It was not a surprise due to his long and stable political career that lasted at least 50 years, the career span of at least 15 years, through social movements, through the roles to politicians as 2 times the president for the Workers' Party, and forming his successor, Dilma Rousseff. He brought everything together in his victory speech a few moments ago here in São Paulo, when he promised a bit of a new future from Brazil, based on what he already did in the early 2000s and early 2010s with the first government of Dilma Rousseff. So Brazil is now working in a path of a center-left government. Lula was originally a leftist government, leftist president, and he decided to run with more names from the right and the center-right to form what we call in Brazil the Frente Ampla, the ample front against Jair Bolsonaro. Now he will not have a good prospect in the first few months of his government, because he doesn't have the majority of the Congress. He doesn't have the majority of the Senate and the lower house. It will be the, how can I put this? It will be the first months for him will be of very big negotiations.
All right.
And he will have to negotiate with the lower chamber, and mainly with the lower chamber president, Arthur Lira, which is the right hand of Bolsonaro. He remains in power now.
All right. Well, that being said, Bolsonaro, as you know, of course, has faced intense backlash on multiple issues while in office. What are some of the policy changes that we can expect now? Because as we heard earlier, Brazil's president-elect did say that the planet needs a living Amazon. So what sort of policy changes can we expect?
Lula put the environmental issues in front and center of his agenda to running for a third time in government. He will not back down on this. It is something that he will. He's under pressure from many countries, from Europe, and mainly from the United States, who wants to keep the Amazon standing. Lula has already put this in strong terms during the whole campaign. He has two major plans for this. The first is to impose the environmental ministry that was destroyed. I think is the right term with the government of Mr. Jair Bolsonaro. And the second, he wants to create a new ministry, a new side of his government dedicated to the original people, the indigenous people here in Brazil. There are close to 1 million people in Brazil, but they are responsible for the protection and the preservation of the most of the Amazon rainforest and the Brazilian Cerrado, which is also as important as the Brazilian Amazon rainforest. Okay. So this will be the two main plans for environmental issues. There are several other issues that Lula pretend to turn to reverse the Bolsonaro policies. One of them is, for example, to turn the foreign relations that Brazil has. Brazil is nowadays ideologically aligned with a very few countries that share this far-right view of Mr. Bolsonaro: Hungary, Poland, Russia, and mostly one another country in Latin America. So Lula has a great history of diplomacy, and he was also greeted by Mr. Barack Obama as the guy and the greatest president ever. So he will try to surf in this remake of him as a diplomatic, cherished president.
All right. Well, Gil Menendez, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast with all your inputs on this. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.